Welcome back to It's About Sports Rival Edition. We are here with President Joe Seabrooks and Wes Parham, and we're discussing the great debate, which is Kobe versus LeBron. We're going to ask them a few questions and see what their opinion on the matter is. Now, we'd like to welcome you guys to our show.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Our first question is, obviously, who do you prefer, Kobe or LeBron? We can start with President Seabrooks.
Oh, well, first of all, I am indeed honored to be on this magnificent program. Thank you for the invitation. My preference, based on their stellar careers, you have to acknowledge that they both have made tremendous contributions to the game. But my preference is Kobe Bryant at this point.
I also want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'd have to say that I fall on the other side. I think that King James is definitely the more stellar player.
Okay, I'd like you to defend your point. Go ahead and tell us why you prefer LeBron.
Well, I think overall, I agree with Dr. Seabrooks. You can't discount what Kobe's added to the game. But I think if you're looking at just complete overall players and statistically what they bring to a team, I think you have some additional rebounds, blocks, and assists with LeBron James that you're just not going to get with Kobe Bryant. And I feel like that's a significant element as it relates to, if we're just comparing them as individual players, I feel like statistically that LeBron's better.
Yeah. And President Seabrooks, why do you prefer Kobe?
Well, I think my distinguished colleague has some interesting perspectives, but I struggle with the terminology or using the adjective king to describe an individual who hasn't won any championships. I mean, if you are going to be a king, who are your subjects? I mean, what have you conquered to be called the king? And so that, I think, is a little bit inflated. Nevertheless, I prefer Mr. Bryant, and I have to be honest, I was not a Kobe Bryant fan in his early years. I mean, he was a pompous, selfish, all about him kind of player.
And that's changed, you? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
And I guess manners is just something that we're going
I
put to the
apologize.
side in this program. But as I was saying before, I was rudely and inappropriately interrupted. I believe watching a young person grow from the boy he was into the man that he is it's been fun to watch. And you have to expect that out of me, because that's what I do as a college president, to watch you all grow and develop as young adults into full blossoming individuals making full contributions. And for an individual to spend 14 years of his life playing professional sports, out of those 14, half of them he spent in the NBA Finals with being victorious in 5 of those. I think it's very difficult to debate whether or not, who would you prefer?
Recently, LeBron moved to the Miami Heat. Some people question his loyalty to any team, thinking he just wants to win. How do you feel about that, Wes?
Well, I would say that may indeed be true. I would say, really, though, in the nature of the way that basketball is played now, you don't have the loyalty that you had team-wise of the early 90s, mid-90s, late 90s. Players nowadays tend to be more mobile. That actually reflects just society in general. You used to have people committing to jobs for 20, 25 years, and now the average professional changes jobs, 6, 7 times. So I think basketball is kind of reflecting the nature of a societal change. So I actually don't necessarily think that LeBron made a bad decision. I think that if you're going to trade teams to a place that's going to win. In this case, he didn't necessarily take or go for the money. He traded with the intent of, I want a team I can win with. So,
President Seabrooks,
Would you mind could I weigh in on that?
Yeah. Oh,
please.
Please
Because I do have a little bit of opinion about that. I think I'm conflicted. On one hand, I have to agree with my distinguished colleague that it is a reflection of our society. Folks do have the right to be in the communities, that's a better fit for them and their families. However, on the flip side of that, I can't imagine Michael Jordan picking up the phone, calling Magic Johnson and calling Larry Bird and say, hey, let's get together and let's dominate. I don't know if I like how it went down. How if it was the owners being strategically and offering some opportunities and some incentives, but these were the players who decided that they were going to try to build a monopoly or build a true kingdom in the basketball world. So that's the part I struggle with, because what happened to the nature of wanting to beat the best? That's what made the Magic Bird rivalry so famous, because they didn't care for each other off the court, and on the court they tried to be the king based off the number of wins in a NBA final, which LeBron James only been to 1 and Kobe has been to 7.
I assume you have the.
I have a number of comments. I want to, I think first off, I think it's interesting that we continue to attack LeBron's title when Kobe's been in the year 14 years and he's yet to have a title really associated with him that'll stick. One won't ever seem to go because, and I also want to comment on this idea of leaving teams, because I believe a few years ago Kobe made a big, huge stink about wanting to leave his team in order to play with some better players. And so it wasn't out of loyalty he stayed. They actually went out and found him some better players, which is why he decided to stay there. So I find that interesting that the attack of LeBron on loyalty would be, caught up in this element. So,
Now let's be clear. Now, I didn't question loyalty is not something that I didn't use that attribute. What I said, if and listen closely, what I said was I think that it's for me the spirit of competition seems to be watered down when the best in the game get together to decide that they want to create a dynasty versus them trying to be across on both sides of the court to beat each other, to brag in the off season because I'm the best because of I'm wearing more rings than you. That spirit of competition seemed a little bit watered down. Now I don't know if that's anything to do with loyalty.
Well, I agree, but I think I wouldn't argue with that. I think that the nature of the game is less competitive than it was in the days when you had the Jordans, the Birds. There was a time when if you beat Detroit, you could just expect a fight afterward, because they were that competitive. And so, I agree that, the competition spirit isn't necessarily the same. And LeBron James may be a victim of that. And so, I don't know if that reflects on, his competitive nature per se, more so in just a change in the overall basketball game is kind of where I would go with that.
I know you have questions, but this
Go
is so
ahead,
good.
please.
This is so good. Well, I wouldn't want to put any of them in the victim category because I think their lives, at least as far as the quality of their lives, will probably outseed all of us in this room. But what's interesting in all of this, it feels like I don't know, when you were a kid and you were on the block and you always had that kid that couldn't stand losing, and so you're playing touch football or tackle football and you're beating them, and so he says, you know what, forget this, I'm going to go get my brothers and I'm going to go beat you because I'm going to go get some bigger, faster folks, but it's not about me being able to beat you with what I have. That's what it feels like. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know if I agree.
Okay.
I think that in the case of even in Kobe Bryant, it was the same feeling. Is I can give my best all the time, but if I don't have some other players on my team, then I can't get a victory. I can't.
But it's fair to say he allowed management to do that. He didn't take it upon himself to make the phone calls. Is that fair to say?
Well, I would say that.
Okay, all right.
We're taking
we
over
have
your show.
one last question,
Okay.
and we were discussing this earlier, sort of, but some people would compare either one of these players to Michael Jordan. And how do you feel that each of these players compares to who's known as the greatest?
Please.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I think for a number of reasons, I don't think either one of them can ever reach that level of Michael Jordan. Number one, I believe that the era when Michael Jordan played was in my opinion, one of the most competitive in NBA history. The teams, it was, as Dr. Seabrooks alluded to several times, more about I'm going to stay until I can beat the best. And I think that was an element. And second, one of the things you can say about Michael Jordan is he never lost in the finals, which you can't say about either one of these players. But before we do end, I want to make an additional note, because I hear this championship thing. It's just kind of been alluded to several times, and so I want to just take a second to reference it. Although Kobe has, and I do not deny, 5 rings, I think it's important to note for me that in 3 of those rings, he was not necessarily the primary player or leader of that team. And so for me, the true comparison between Kobe and LeBron happens after the exit of Shaquille O'Neal from the Lakers. And if so, if you compare it in that instance, then you have
2 championships to 0.
Well, hold on. Yeah, I can't. Can I finish my
Yeah,
thought?
please,
I just want to. I think I would have fit it. You have 2 champions to 0, but I think you have to look at in an instance. It took Kobe 5 years to finally get that championship. Now, LeBron is actually really only at that point 2 years behind as it relates to that. So you give the man 2 more years. Significantly, he's ahead of where Kobe was. Kobe didn't get his first MVP till he's 29. LeBron James has 2 already. I think where you give him some more time. He's only a few years behind, and I think that'll be proven. Maybe not necessarily as clearly now since he's joined Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh.
Yeah, that's pretty.
But so I think that's going to diminish, whether or not he can. Well, yeah, I would argue because that's Dwayne Wade's team. So and so I think that. So I think I think that would diminish it. But I think that it's the comparison for me is not as big when you look at it that way.
Thank you.
So just a side note.
How do you feel that either of them compares to Michael Jordan?
Well, I think Michael Jordan, his greatness expands beyond what he did on the basketball court. People don't acknowledge that he changed the culture of basketball from this fashion. Because when I played, our shorts were a little snug, and so he changed the fashion from the one knee braids to the wristband that's on your forearm to then also creating a mega conglomerate business out of his image. I mean, I think no one has ever started to where he came from with being the 6th pick in the draft, to have this superstar status. I mean, he was probably the most recognizable person on the planet in his heyday, and because he was able to establish a brand, he set the blueprint for all of professional athletes and entertainers to follow. And how do you compare anyone to that? Now, as a basketball player, I think that he revolutionized the game. Guards playing above the rim, guards over 6 feet, 6'6", doing the things that he would do night in and night out. So I think they are the blueprint. They're following his blueprint, and they're making his blueprint better. But he's the architect, and it's hard to say that you're better or comparable.
I agree. I'd like to thank you both for being here. We really enjoyed talking with you.
Appreciate it.
I.
And that'll be it for us.